Page 2 of your notes, natural selection. Okay, so basically we're starting at 21. We did evolution, the front page the other day, or yesterday, depending on how quickly you went. Okay, so now we're on page 2. So, natural selection, defined as, this is number 21, organisms that are better suited for their environment are more likely to survive and reproduce. Those last three words, survive and reproduce, that is the whole point of life. Okay, in a very, very, very simplistic sense, you want to stay alive, you want to make sure your genes get passed on. Okay, in a very basic sense, that is the whole point of life. And natural selection is trying to basically do that. You need to basically be better suited for your environment so that way you can survive and reproduce. So take this picture, for example, really easy, okay? You got a husky and you got a chihuahua. Put them up in Alaska, who's going to survive? The husky. He's better suited for their environment there. So they have kids, they got two huskies, they got two chihuahuas, okay? The chihuahuas don't make it because, they're, chihuahuas. The huskies do, and slowly but surely, natural selection is going to select these guys because they are better suited for the Alaskan environment. But switch that environment up. Put the chihuahua and the husky, put them here in Las Vegas. Put them in the dead heat of summer. Are those guys going to do well? Obviously not. Okay, then the chihuahuas are going to be better suited for the environment. So it's very much based on the environment that the organisms are in. That's a really, really, really important part of it. Now there are four main parts to natural selection. This is 22. Okay, overproduction, genetic variation, struggle to survive, and differential reproduction. And we're going to walk through all four of these. So if you need to pause it real quick to fill in 22, go for it. So first thing, overproduction. Okay, simply more offspring are produced than can reach maturity. Or basically, there's just too many organisms, not enough food. Very, very, very easy example for that. Okay, so number 23, define overproduction, give an example. There's your definition right there. Your example, think about it. If all of a sudden, Las Vegas, we're at, I don't even know, 2 million people, something like that. If next year we have 10 million people living in Las Vegas, is everybody going to survive? Definitely not. There's just simply not enough food, not enough resources. There's just not enough stuff for people to survive. So that is overproduction. Okay, now genetic variation. This is number 24. This is when individuals have different traits that make them more adaptable to their environment. Again, environment is a key thing in evolution. Okay, now these guys here. These guys are elephant seals. There's the male, there's the female. Okay, these guys are what's known as sexually dimorphic species. So that's elephant seal, obviously because of the big snout right there, and simply size and the snout makes it so you know that this is a male, this is a female. Okay, sexually dimorphic, you can easily tell the two apart. Okay, basically, big dude, he gets the girl. Is as basic as it comes down to, is all it is. Okay, different traits make them more adaptable. So if you're the biggest dude on the beach, you're going to win. You're going to get the girl. The whole survive and reproduce thing, you win. That's the different traits you're talking about. You're the biggest, you're the strongest, you're the fastest, you're the most agile, all that kind of stuff. Now, struggle to survive. Okay, this is number 25. So animals got to survive the challenges of their environment to produce offspring. Again, environment is crucial. Okay, now in adaptation, this was one of your vocab words, so you should know this. Any trait that makes an individual successful in its environment. So the struggle to survive can either be looked at from the cheetah's perspective or the gazelle's perspective. Okay, we'll take the gazelle first. He is very easily struggling to survive because he's got to run. He's got to get away from the cheetah. And the gazelle, interesting fact, they're actually slower than the cheetah, but they can corner better than the cheetah. And so if they kind of zigzag, they potentially will win. And if you've seen those videos in slow motion, those guys are always zigzagging around. Okay? But from the other perspective, struggle to survive, he needs to catch the gazelle in order to eat, therefore he can survive. So the struggle to survive can be both from the predator perspective and the prey perspective. Both of them can be going through the struggle to survive, or both of them are going through the struggle to survive. Now, double check. Number 26 is right here, the adaptation. Make sure you get both of those down. Okay, now differential reproduction. This right here, this is the core. This is the most important part of Darwin's theory of evolution. This is 27, or 27 and 28. Okay, differential reproduction, when an organism with the best adaptations are most likely to survive and reproduce. Again, those three words: survive, reproduce. Okay, this is differential reproduction. Okay, then through inheritance or through giving those genes, through reproduction, giving those genes to your kids, those adaptations of being the fastest and the strongest and the most agile and the best eyes and the fastest swimmer and the fastest runner and the best corner and all those different adaptations, through inheritance, those adaptations get passed on and become more and more and more frequent. So going back, okay, think about, 5 million years ago, was the cheetah running at 60 miles an hour? Probably not. Let's say back then he was going at 35, and this one guy, all of a sudden he's running at 37 miles an hour. So he is surviving. That trait is being the best adaptations. He survives. Therefore, he has kids that can run at 37 miles an hour. Then a few generations later, one of the kids can run at 39 miles an hour. And then it keeps on going and it keeps on going. And now those dudes are running at 60 miles an hour. Okay? Pretty basic stuff, but I want to make sure you know how to explain that. Okay? Now again, we got differential reproduction, same thing. Their adaptation to Alaska with the big fur and everything makes them more suitable to their environment. So they survive, they reproduce. Those adaptations become more and more and more common in the population. All right, now talking about survival of the fittest. Now, what fitness is, this is number 30. Okay, fitness is a measurement of an individual's hereditary contribution to the next generation. Or, an easy way to think of it, fitness is how many kids you have. Okay, how are you contributing your genes to your kids? That's basically what it boils down to. Don't think of fitness as, like Arnold Schwarzenegger and The Rock and, all those big dudes. Okay, it's not necessarily the big and strong ones that are going to be to survive. Like I said, don't mistake it for being big and strong. Okay, a fit individual is simply one that's got many descendants. That's all it is. Okay, so some biologists refer to this as fitness as measured in grandchildren. Okay, that's pretty much what they talk about, fitness measured in grandchildren. So if you have 100 kids, your fitness level from an evolutionary perspective is really high. If you got 0 kids, your fitness measurement in evolutionary standards, very, 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 very low. Because you're not giving your genes to the next generation. All right, so natural selection. Okay, there are 3 types: stabilizing, disruptive, and directional. Okay, this is 31. Okay, now this bell curve is a very, very standard kind of mathematical curve. You can kind of apply it to kind of any part of a population. Think about the height in the classroom, of everybody's height. So let's say that there's, somebody 6 foot way over here, there's only like one of them. And over on this side, there's somebody who's like 4'4", and there's one of them. Everybody's going to fall into like, the 5'3" to 5'7" range or something like that. Okay, it's kind of like the most common traits have the big hump to it. Okay, so now we're going to walk through each type of these natural selections. So the first one is stabilizing selection. So number 32 asks, which individuals have the highest fitness during stabilizing selection? Individuals with the average form. So if for whatever reason, let's go back to the height example. If for whatever reason the people that are going to survive are going to be those between 5'4" and 5'7", that's going to become more common. Okay, because if you're really short, you're going to get, eaten by something. Or if you're really tall, you're going to get eaten by something. Okay, another good example, same thing we were just talking about. Lizards, they're too large, so the guys over on this side, okay, they can be easily seen. Okay, they can't hide very well. But on the other hand, the small lizards, the dude over on this side, they can't run fast enough. Like, they can't get their little legs to run fast enough to get away from the predators. So the guys in the sweet spot in the middle, they're big enough so they can run fast enough, but they're not too big so they can still hide. Okay, that's stabilizing selection. Now, next one, this is disruptive selection. Now, this is basically the complete opposite of stabilizing selection. Okay, this is where individuals with either extreme variation of a trait. So basically the guys way out here, the guys way out here. Those are the guys that are favored the most. Okay. Now an example is a limpet. A limpet is kind of like a snail that lives like on the rocky coast. Like up in Washington, we have a lot of rocks on our coast. They're basically snails that kind of like grab onto the rocks, and that's where they live. So their color range can go from pure white to really dark tan. But think of it in a very basic camouflage sense. If a beige or kind of a tan limpet is on a dark rock, it's going to be easily seen. So it's either they got to be pure white, so the guy's over here, on white rocks, or the really, really dark tan to go on the darker rocks. So camouflaged, camouflaged. But if they're tan on a dark rock, or really light tan on a dark rock, they're going to be seen. Okay, basically camouflage is what this is talking about here. Now there's directional selection. Now this is 34. This is when individuals have a more extreme form of a trait have the highest fitness. Okay, now an example of this is like a bird with larger wings, like the guys way over on the right side here. They'll be able to fly farther if their prey travels. So like think of California. You know, they're going through their drought and everything. If you have a bird and you got kind of small wings and you're sitting over on this side and your lake dries up, if you can't fly to a new lake, you're done. Okay, but if you have a real huge wingspan, you can fly for miles and miles and miles and miles and miles. If your lake dries up, you can fly to a new lake. And you can get there and you can find some more food and you can survive. Okay, that's what it's talking about in this case. Okay, so now got to go back real quick. We got the stabilizing selection, the guys in the middle. Disruptive selection, the guys on the outside. And the directional selection is going either to the right or to the left. Okay, those are the three types of natural selection. Okay, now we're getting into artificial selection. This is where humans come into effect. Okay, now this is 35. Now what is it? Artificial selection is a process where a human breeder selects which individuals parent the next generation. So remember back to Mendel. He is a perfect example of doing artificial selection. He was choosing the parents of the whatever flowers would be the next generation, or be the parents of the next generation. Okay? If a human is involved, it's artificial selection. That's a real easy way to remember it. If we're involved, artificial selection. Okay? Now this can range from animals to crops to medicines. It can range a whole bunch of different spots. So like think of dog breeds. Initially, there was one type of dog breed. And for whatever reason, human breeders are like, you know what? I want something that's really tall, really big, but still think he's a lap dog. I'm going to make a Great Dane. Or a different human breeder was like, you know what? I want something that's small, can stick in purses, and will hate everybody but their owner. Therefore, the birth of the Chihuahua. And so the human breeder selects, like, you know, think of all the different dog breeds. You know, some are good at herding, some are good at hunting, some are good guard dogs. That's humans being involved in the whole thing. Now we talked about with crops. Think about it. If you were the farmer, we talked about the strawberries a while back. If you were to all of a sudden you get some strawberries that are all of a sudden producing bigger strawberries, you're going to have those guys be the parents so you can get bigger and bigger and bigger strawberries. Okay, same thing with medicine. Medicine is typically made by bacteria. So basically you can find the right bacteria and you can choose what it makes. Now, some few examples. Let's walk through these. Okay, the first one, the peppered moths, they're usually white, but they changed to black because of the Industrial Revolution, leaving black soot or black pollution is basically what it is, like ashes, like when you burn a fire. That's the soot they're talking about. So the Industrial Revolution, leaving a whole bunch of black soot or black ashes on trees. Therefore, the birds were able to eat the white-colored moths, making their population decrease. So is this natural or artificial selection? So this is actually natural selection. Okay? Even though we were the idiots who created all the pollution, we didn't choose who the parents were going to be. It's just simply the birds were able to eat the white-colored ones. So we didn't choose it, therefore it's natural. Next one. Modern-day strains of corn and wheat are bigger. They also grow faster. Is that natural or is that artificial selection? That one's artificial selection because we were the ones that got the corn to grow bigger and faster. We chose which parents would be the parents for the next generation. Next one, rat snakes. They come in a variety of colors because they have to adapt to their environments, natural or artificial. This one's natural. Okay, they have to adapt to their environments. Humans aren't involved in any of this. Okay, now bacteria becoming more resistant to antibiotics after many generations, natural or artificial. This is natural. Are we selecting the parents of the bacteria? Nope. We are talking the antibiotics. We're making the antibiotics better. And so basically think of it kind of like a war of evolution. We make better antibiotics, so they get stronger. And we make better antibiotics, and they get it back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Okay, another one. Galapagos finches. They're a species of bird that share habitats and characteristics, except they all have different shaped beaks to eat different food. Development of different shaped beaks is an example of natural selection. We weren't the parent, or we didn't decide who the parents were going to be. That's just naturally from the environment. All right, so going back to the notes, this is number 36. Defining extinction. This is when a species disappears by the death of its last member. Okay, this should be pretty straightforward. You know, when the hippos go extinct or when the rhinos go extinct, it's like that last final organism that dies, then they're officially extinct. Okay, now this can be a natural process or caused by human interference. And as we, I'm sure, know already, we're really, really good at screwing up our world. So some natural processes, this is some pretty easy stuff. You should be able to brainstorm some of these pretty easily. Okay, first one, catastrophic event. We talked about that at the beginning of evolution. Think about like the meteors that took out the dinosaurs. That's a catastrophic event. Okay, new species introduced that's better adapted to the environment. So, you know, some winds take some sort of bird somewhere and they're just bigger and stronger and faster. Basically, that's natural cause. Okay, their food source runs out or moves away, like we were talking about with the drought in California. Okay, the drought in California, that lake dries up, the birds no longer have the fish, they go extinct. Okay, now human causes. Holy crap, there can be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these, but we'll just hit some basic ones. So habitat loss or fragmentation. Basically, think about how many houses are being built these days. Okay, we're constantly cutting down forests. We're constantly cutting down parts of the desert just to move houses back there. Like think of the Amazon rainforest. They're literally burning hundreds and hundreds of acres a day. So where the animals used to live, there's no more place for them to be. Okay, habitat degradation. This is also a huge one. Think of like I'm not sure if you guys have ever seen pictures of the Mississippi River, but it is completely brown because of all the pollution that we're putting into the water from all the farms that are over there. So the water source over there, it's becoming worse and worse and worse. It's degrading. Okay, water pollution, like we just talked about. Land pollution, exhaust from pipes and CO2 and stuff like that. Hunting, okay, a lot of poaching happens in Africa. You know, they used to kill a lot of elephants for their ivory. Okay, we got tons and tons and tons of reasons. Okay, so evidence for evolution. This is actually the next lecture. So I'm going to stop this here. Keep your packet with you and make sure not to lose it. Go through the next part of the lessons.